Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you all on behalf of the Rumi Forum to our annual iftar dinner. It's actually not the annual iftar dinner, it's one of many annual iftar dinners. Last year we were honored in organizing 20 dinners throughout Ramadan, and I'm pleased to say we broke that record. We have 27 this year, which means of the 30 nights we're very busy, to say the least. I want to welcome you all again on behalf of Rumi Forum. Our institute is dedicated to increasing understanding between people of different backgrounds, irrespective of faith or culture. This is one means of bringing people together. We appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us this evening. I'll say a few words about Ramadan, and then we have a few opening remarks from some of our friends. Ramadan, in essence, is about sacrifice at a very personal level. It is sacrificing for the sake of God, giving up of one's food, giving up of pleasure, and sacrificing the intent to commit misdeeds. Along those themes, one very important aspect of Ramadan, of course, is sharing in the meal with your family and with friends, but even more so with strangers, with travelers, and what have you. It is considered a blessing to break bread together and share in a meal. So it is with this intention, this social aspect to Ramadan, that we see blessings in not only sharing meals between ourselves, but with our friends, and for that matter, for those people we don't know, but we hope to know. So I thank you again on behalf of the Rumi Forum. I'd like to now call upon Annabel, Hertz, who will provide a few remarks this evening. Thank you.
Hi everyone. I'm going to read from my notes because my memory isn't so good. On the other hand, my eyesight is going as well, so we'll see how that works out. I'm Annabel Hertz, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm very happy to be included in tonight's feast and hosted by the Turkish-American community to share iftar dinner with you. I thank you, Emre. I enjoyed very much traveling with you in Turkey on a Rumi Forum trip, and I appreciate you giving me this chance to contribute to tonight's discussion with some remarks, and also to touch on the important themes of breaking bread and making conversation. Earlier today, I was reading about what some of the organizations in the U.S. affiliated with Hizmet had to say about iftar. And the thing that really hit home for me, especially as an American, was how today, with such mobile and fast-paced lives, there are fewer and fewer opportunities for us to get together as a community, get to know one another, and actually continue to have and sustain, maintain our relationships. Maybe you'll agree with me when I say that the disconnect is exacerbated by technology. It allows everyone to be in contact all of the time, but as I heard one person describe very aptly, it also allows people just to play their own soliloquies. So we're often not talking with one another. Technology doesn't allow us to give each other a pat on the back or make eye contact or embrace our friends, and I think that's something that's really missing. What also struck a chord in reading about iftar was how without personal contact, people in general are tending to care less and less about one another. So one of the purposes of breaking bread together tonight is to reclaim or maybe even ignite a practice of taking time to know each other once again, and therefore get back to a place of caring. Of course, closely associated with caring is giving, and all religions emphasize this, as do many secular groups who work on issues such as hunger or homelessness or social inclusion. Making sure people have the basics, I think, is really a fundamental instinct that we all share. It's why at the end of Ramadan, people give fitra with the idea that their donation is going to give food to one person and feed them for one day. But we lose sight of this aspect even as we become, or because we become too disconnected. Here in the States, I describe this as becoming separate from ourselves, For instance, the way most people don't really see people who live on the street, for example. They stop recognizing the commonalities and the continuum among, rather than the division between our various life situations. This disconnect also happens in more subtle ways. The way we don't sit together for meals, but we rather eat our food standing at the sink, on the telephone, while multitasking, watching TV on the run. And we know that kids who actually eat with their parents are more likely to communicate, they're more likely to study well, and they're going to avoid behavior that puts them at risk. So this is extremely important. So I think we're really very much in need of occasions like this to remind us that we're meant to share the experience of delicious, healthy food together, and these benefits are actually plentiful. This was the case throughout our trip to Turkey. We were hosted by very generous families who were happy to share whatever they had with us, and I think even more significantly, to give us their time, their joy, their openness, and their attention. As the author, Khalil Gibran, has said, "You give but little when you give of your possessions. It's only when you give of yourself that you truly give." This is because we not only crave and need food, but we are also hungry to bond, feed our spirits, and gain a sense of meaning from our relationships. The tradition of socializing, walking, and talking following on iftar is a lovely demonstration of this, to my mind. It's really quite special. Last year when I was in Tunis during Ramadan, and despite all of the political turmoil, it was wonderful to see families going to the seaside late at night with their picnics and eating on the sand under lanterns. It was a really magical experience. I'm wondering if you've all heard of the brief fable called The Wise Woman's Stone. The author is unknown, but I'd like to share it with you. It's brief. A wise woman who was traveling in the mountains found a precious stone in a stream. The next day she met another traveler who was hungry, and the wise woman opened her bag to share the food. The hungry traveler saw the precious stone and asked the woman to give it to him. She did so without hesitation. The traveler left, rejoicing in his good fortune. He knew the stone was worth enough to give him security for a lifetime. But a few days later he came back to return the stone to the woman. "I've been thinking," he said. "I know how valuable the stone is, but I give it back in the hope that you give me something even more valuable. Give me what you have within you that enabled you to give me the stone." This is the sentiment I believe we're celebrating tonight, and that is generosity in the greatest sense of the word. Excuse me. Another invaluable aspect of inviting a wide circle of neighbors to join an iftar is allowing space for cross-cultural discussions. Again, as an American, I'm so aware of the polarizing aspects of society, which have gotten much worse since I was growing up. Probably some of you would agree with that. It's not necessarily because opinions on critical issues differ so much. It's just that the news, the governance, the debate, everything has become so combative, sensationalized, and extreme. And this town, of course, is notorious as a quintessential microcosm for this. But these disagreements can be passionate and remain respectful. I think the outdated practice of simply exchanging perspectives rather than promoting this confrontational culture as a way to advance common problem solving could really use a renaissance. And I truly think occasions like this provide an alternative for human interaction. In this way, every time you all practice openness and inclusion, I think you're all leading by example. And just to emphasize how important this is, I offer you one last quote, and then we'll go to the next speaker. This is by an author named Sue Patton Thowell, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. She says, "Deep listening is miraculous for both listener and speaker.